The criminal underworld is a dangerous place. It's run by cutthroat figures who will take any means necessary to protect what's theirs. Brutal tactics and intimidation are part of the job. When you hear of the violent and dangerous crimes the Mafia is involved in, it's natural to think they were committed by men. But you'd be surprised to know that several of the most powerful crime syndicates have women in power. One of the most infamous figures was Griselda Blanco, who dominated the cocaine market. She paved the way for many cartel bosses, including Pablo Escobar. But she's not the only dominant female force in the history of organized crime. Women like Asunta Maresca, Medina Alieva, Sandra Avila Beltran, and others have led crews and committed crimes that shook the world. In today's video, we're going to explore some of the most infamous women connected to organized crimes. These women ruled with a reign of terror that can easily be compared to the most infamous male crime lords. Stay tuned to learn more about the impact of these queen pins. The Camorra women, queens of Naples. The Camorra is the oldest crime organization in Italy, with a history dating back to the 17th century. Throughout the late 1950s and 1960s, the clans forming the Camorra grew significantly, becoming one of the largest Italian syndicates. They had more members and more influence in organized crime in Campania. Over the years, the Camorra has earned a reputation as a ruthless and violent organization. These clans strike fear in Naples and throughout the rest of Italy. It's estimated that there are roughly 7,000 members within the syndicate, and many of them are female. There are more women involved in the Camorra than in other mafias. Let's start with Asunta Pepetta Maresca. This former mafia boss was more than familiar with the organized crime gang. She gained a lot of media attention and enjoyed it. She was smart when it came to criminal activities and how to manage their downfalls. After all, she was a beautiful and charismatic woman. She knew how to use that to her advantage when necessary. The media first became fascinated with Pepetta when she was only 18 years old. Although she was young, she was already a widow. She was fueled by the desire to inflict revenge on her husband's killer, and that's exactly what she did. She killed the man in broad daylight and admitted during trial that she would do it again. Throughout the years, Pepetta rose through the ranks. She would often pull stunts to put the public eye on herself, but this was only to draw attention away from her brothers, who were making big moves for the criminal organization. Pepetta was ahead of her time, paving the path for women in organized crime. She wasn't afraid to take on a rival and was known to have several of them disappear. But she also proved that females could take on operations like loan sharking and extortion, even if violence and intimidation were needed to get the job done. Another notable female from the Camorra was Maria the Little One Licciardi. Now, this woman may have been tiny, but she was powerful. She became the leader of a clan that her brother founded in the Second Digliano neighborhood in Naples. She has been linked to crimes such as drug trafficking, extortion, and money laundering. In 2001, she was placed on the FBI's most wanted list. 20 years later, she was arrested at an airport in Rome. The Black Widow Gang, Russia's femme fatales. The Mafia may be the most influential in the world of organized crime, but there are other gangs serving a mission. Let's take the Black Widows from Russia. This is an all-female gang with a similar goal in mind. They want to avenge their husbands or relatives who were killed in one of the Chechen wars. Over the years, this gang has been linked to several suicide bombings. According to CBC, there have been over 30 attacks since the year 2001. The first Black Widows attack took place in Alkanyurt, a Chechen village. Two teenagers, 17-year-old Kava Barayeva and 16-year-old Luisa Magmadova, drove a truck packed with explosives into a Russian military headquarters building. The last attack was in May of 2013. This attack was carried out by Medina Alieva, a 25-year-old widow. She joined the Black Widows because her first and second husbands were both killed as part of militant groups. Her first husband was killed in 2009 and her second died in 2012. The traumatized woman approached traffic police in the southern Republic of Dagestan, Makhachkala. 15 people were injured in this attack. Overall, this attack has been linked to roughly 900 deaths and many more injuries. While the suicide bombers have all been female, it's believed that this organization was created by a man, Shamil Basayev, a Chechen rebel military commander. He was a known terrorist who wanted to separate Russian soldiers from Chechnya. While he had several groups of suicide bombers, male and female, it was the female stories that captured the public's attention. Over the early 2000s, there were several high-profile Black Widows attacks. This includes the frightening incident in October of 2002 when 19 of the Black Widows and 20 male suicide bombers working for Shamil Basayev raided a Moscow theater wearing suicide vests. They captured 900 hostages. Although special forces put an end to this madness, taking the lives of several Black Widows, their mission of terror didn't stop there. Over the following years, they carried out attacks on a commuter train, rock concert, and luxury hotel. 2 passenger jets were taken down, and one of the most terrifying acts was taking hostages from a school. Studies have been performed on the women who are involved in the Black Widows. These women ranged in age from 15 to 38. Each one had a different background story, but they all had something deep in common. They were traumatized by an incident that left them scarred forever. Some had loved ones killed by soldiers. Others had been attacked or sexually assaulted by members of the military. Each woman's purpose is to seek revenge. The Colombian Cocaine Queens, narco queens of South America. We can't talk about women in organized crime without mentioning Griselda Blanco, the godmother of cocaine. She played a significant role in Colombia's cocaine trade through the 1970s and 1980s. Griselda was a pioneer in the drug trade, building her own empire. She was known for her innovative ideas, especially when it came to smuggling drugs. There were many females working for her, so Griselda opened up an undergarments factory in Colombia. She had specialty garments designed for the women to wear while traveling. They had compartments where drugs could be stored. Griselda was also known for her violent reign. Rivals, husbands, and other people that got in her way felt the wrath of her terror. Murder was just part of the trade to this queenpin. She was even innovative with her hits. Griselda perfected the technique of drive-by shootings on a motorcycle. This assassination style made it easier for hitmen to escape the scene. While Griselda became an influential force in the drug world, she made a lot of enemies along the way. Authorities were on her trail, and rivals were on the hunt for her. Her fate was all in the hands of who found her first. However, the DEA got to her first, with Griselda being arrested in 1985. When it comes to the Colombian cartel and cocaine trade, Griselda is easily the most prominent figure, but she has influenced several other notable cartel females. Authorities in Colombia have noticed a rise in female leaders in Latin American drug cartels. More women throughout the years have been involved with drug trafficking, extortion, human trafficking, and even violent crimes like murder. Unfortunately, many women in Latin America join these gangs to seek protection because they are afraid of becoming victims. The cartels are also very accepting of female members because of how well they can pull off operations. Many female leaders in the cartel were able to climb the ranks because they were observant, patient, and adaptable to different roles. They also have a better chance of going unnoticed by authorities, especially when smuggling drugs. The Chinese Triad Sisters, women in the shadows. Chinese triads can be dated back to the 17th century. Gangs originated to overtake the Qing dynasty and restore the Ming dynasty. As these gangs progressed and gained more power, they eventually fell in line with central control. This led to rules, traditions, and rituals that became custom to the triads and organized crime. Triad clans have mainly been dominated by male figures. However, there have been a few notorious females who made their mark in history. This includes the Mother Snake, who could fight her way to the top, and Chang Chui Ping, who organized a human trafficking operation. Let's start with Xi Zhen, who was named the Mother Snake. As a kid, she dominated the playground by beating up all her rival classmates. At the age of 14, she beat a man into marrying her. It didn't take her long to realize what her strength was. If she wanted something, she would beat up anyone who told her no. In her early 20s, she got involved with the Green Gang, known for organizing rackets. With this gang, she was also involved in extortion, robberies, and other crimes. It didn't take long for her to become the #1 female gangster in the crew. In her 30s, she became associated with Wang Jingwei regime in Japan. She became part of the No. 76. It was her duty to intimidate and beat up any Chinese people plotting against Japan. In some cases, she even had to kill the people. While Mother Snake was a prominent female force in the 1920s to 1930s, Chang Chui Ping was the female triad to be feared in the 1980s to 2000s. She was responsible for a human trafficking operation that smuggled roughly 3,000 people into China. Cheng was dubbed the mother of the snakeheads because snakeheads is the term used to describe people involved in human trafficking. This operation lasted for nearly 2 decades, earning an estimated $40 million. At one point, Cheng was charging $35,000 per person. She was brought down by FBI efforts and sentenced to 35 years in prison in 2006. She passed away before she completed her sentence, but her legacy of fear lives on. The Mexican Cartel Queens, narco queens of the South. The most famous drug queen pin is Griselda Blanco, but the Mexican drug cartels have empowered many female figures. From Sandra Avila Beltran, who lived one of the highest levels of cartel life, to Emma Coronel, El Chapo's wife, there are several key female players in Mexico's world of underground crime. Enedina Arellano Felix. Enedina was introduced to the cartel life through her relatives. Her brothers founded the Tijuana cartel. One of her brothers was gunned down, and shortly after, the other brother was sent to prison. This left Enedina to run the cartel on her own, which wasn't a problem because she was an intelligent woman with a cold streak. She wasn't afraid to get violent when needed. She had the right business sense and connections to keep the cartel going without getting caught herself. Sandra Avila Beltran. Sandra is known as the Queen of the South Pacific. She earned this nickname through an operation where she smuggled a fleet of tuna boats, each carrying 10 tons of cocaine. As she rose to power in the drug trade, she lived a very luxurious lifestyle, which included private jets and VIP parties. Of course, some of these parties turned into deadly shootouts. Sandra is a free woman today, but she served 7 years in prison for money laundering. When asked about her history in the world of drug crimes, Sandra admitted she doesn't feel any guilt. Emma Coronel. Emma may not be as influential as her husband, El Chapo, but she was involved with the Mexican drug cartel. Now, Emma may not have been the most powerful force in the Sinaloa cartel, but her story shows that the glamour of the organized crime lifestyle is only worth it if you're prepared to face the inevitable. Once her husband was sent to prison, Emma started to crumble. She became the most visible female figure to the public eye, but on the inside, she had the least amount of power and resources. In fact, the most powerful women in this cartel were barely known in the public eye. While Emma's husband may have been the ringleader, she is facing the consequences too. Out of fear, she turned herself in and pleaded guilty to charges of drug trafficking. Guadalupe Fernandez Valencia. So, Emma may have been the most publicly known female of the Sinaloa cartel, but Guadalupe Fernandez Valencia was the most influential. She was a major player in drug trafficking and money laundering from 2009 to 2014. When El Chapo was arrested, she was the only female named on the indictment. While Guadalupe may have been tough working with the cartel, she has been cooperative with authorities since being arrested. She pleaded guilty to all charges and provided information. It's also been reported that due to good behavior in prison, she could get an early release. Luz Irene Farriado Campos. Luz began a drug cartel of her very own along with her sons. Their operation involved sourcing Colombian cocaine and importing precursor chemicals to bring into Mexico. From here, they would turn the ingredients into meth. They would stamp the name Yenka into the drugs, which was a nickname that many of Luz's associates referred to her as. Luz stands out in the cartel world because of how she got involved. Most women turn to the cartel life because they are related to it, married into it, or seeking protection. Luz entered this lifestyle treating it like a legitimate business. She started to make money and keep it coming in. However, her cartel ways came to an end in 2017 when she was arrested and sentenced to 22 years behind bars. This wraps up our video on the women of organized crime. Women have made a big impact in the underworld of crime. Some women enter this world through marriage, while others have innovative ideas that broaden criminal operations. Although females only make up a small percentage of mafia figures, they have shown that women can be just as ruthless as men. The Camorra is the most female-centered mafia organization in Italy. Over the years, several females have risen to positions of power. The Black Widows may not be a mafia group, but they were an organized crime gang. They were made up of women who wanted to avenge someone who was hurt or killed by Russian soldiers. While the triads are mostly male-dominated, a few females have jumped through the ranks to lead gangs that terrorized their regions. Cartels have the most potential for female leadership. Several females have taken on powerful roles in Colombian, Mexican, and other drug cartels. This includes infamous women like Griselda Blanco and Sandra Avila Beltran. These queenpins have turned crime into an empire. This wraps up our video on women in the Mafia. Thank you for sticking with us to the end. If you want to see more Mafia Mystique content, make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe.